be okay. So there's the, I will say too, just as we get started, it's only a coincidence that the three of us happen to be Biola graduates. There's many other great institutes like SCS, which is where Kristen is doing her PhD work. But I know a couple people on the call have aspirations maybe to pursue a master's level training, and I'll vouch for Biola. It's a great experience. So if anybody out there, like in Israel maybe, is thinking about pursuing this, highly recommend Biola. So, all right, with that little promo thing, let me share my screen. And I've got to hit this. All right. So can you guys give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Okay. All right. Thumbs up on the screen. And let me make sure that I can advance these things with my, all right. All right, so once again, thank you guys for taking a few minutes out of your Saturday to join us here and to really get a debrief on what we talked about a month ago when many of you were on the send-off call. So we did go, we survived, and we're now back, and we want to report on the amazing time that we had. So, and before I start, I know a number of you have been praying for this and supporting us, both with your prayers and financially. So we really appreciate that. And hey, here's somebody who braved the parade. Hi. Yeah, sorry. So I now have a studio audience, so I can actually legitimately point to my studio audience here. So thanks for coming down, Brian. We're just getting started. I'm going to redirect the sound out. Well, you can hear me fine. So you can hear me fine. All right, so we are Adventurous Apologetics. Just a quick reminder of what we do. In a nutshell, we take apologetics on mission, and we go and we catalyze events to generate excitement and provide opportunity for people to come together and connect. We equip regional leaders and emerging leaders to be prepared to take the apologetics that we can plant into them and equip them, and then they can take it to their communities. We build long-term relationships, which are really critical for doing any of these things. And everything that we do is relational, building relationships with the leaders, with the influencers that we intersect with when we go on mission. And then finally, we help empower those leaders and those communities to be able to carry on the work in a variety of different ways. We help them, we empower them with training, we empower them with technology, and we empower them with just the encouragement and the mentorship that they need to be able to do this. So that's really what we do as Adventurous Apologetics. And I wanted to remind you of these key things because I feel like this trip, which was literally our first official trip as Adventurous Apologetics, really exemplified each one of these things. We were able to accomplish catalyzing, equipping, building relationships, and empowering during this time. So why do we do this? It's really very simple. There is an alarming statistic that I think we all sort of know about, but upwards towards 70%, it could even be higher, of especially emerging leaders, young people that have been brought up in the church, when they go out on their own, they are leaving. They are leaving the faith. And so that is really concerning because it won't take too much of that before we've really lost a lot of ground as the church. And why are they leaving? Well, there's many reasons, but one of them is because they don't know really why they believe what they believe. We've done a good job of telling them what to believe, giving them the gospel. talking about the Bible and what the Bible says. But we haven't done as good a job, I think, of equipping them with why they should believe it's true. And that's really what apologetics is all about, is giving the why reasons behind the truth of what it is we believe. So, so those of us who are passionate about this project of apologetics really want to address this key thing and do our part to try and stem the tide of people leaving. And so, of course, we need that here on the home front, but there is a huge need out, especially in the developing world, where there's little visibility or little access or both to the tools of apologetics. You know, it's hard enough here on the home front, but in some of these developing countries, there really is very little visibility to apologetics as part of the church life. And so that's really what we want to do as Adventurous Apologetics, is go to those places, go to those communities, intersect with those emerging leaders, and equip them with the why behind the what, so that they can then be equipped for their communities and help this challenge that we face of people walking away, build up their strength, build up the good reasons that they can bring into their lives, so that when they go out and when their faith is challenged, as it will be, they'll already have the answers to those challenges. So, and they too can be equipped with their communities as they go out to spread the gospel and not only talk about the what of the gospel, but why it's true. So that's really why we do it. So that brings us to our first mission. We've been blessed by having a great door open in East Africa. And it's mostly thanks to Eternal Impact, the ministry that is birthing and incubating Adventurous Apologetics, that we've had the relationships and we've had the platforms and the opportunities to go and do this work in Uganda. And now we're expanding into Rwanda and Kenya, as you'll see. So here's our team. So we're a small group right now. It's me and Kristen, and we partnered with another gentleman, Steve Van Horn, who is part of his own ministry called the International Training and Equipping Ministry. And Steve is an amazing young man of 75 who has been to Africa, all over Africa. He's been there, I think, over 70 times. And so he's very experienced. He spent a lot of time in Africa. His heart is now directed more and more towards apologetics as part of his ministry. And so he came along with us as the US team. We were also able to partner with several apologetics groups in Africa, specifically the Africa Center for Apologetics Research, which was a key partner in this, as well as a new partner, Come and See Rwanda. I've recently come to know some of the people involved there, and they're a wonderful group, and I'm excited to have opportunity to work with them. I'll speak a little bit more about that later. So this is our group. So we had actually three main things that we wanted to do during this mission. So the first one resulted in what we call the East Africa Apologetics Leaders Summit. That's a big mouthful, but it was really an opportunity to bring key leaders and influencers to a central place and really address some of the key issues involving apologetics in East Africa. You know, when I've been there in the past, always the question comes up, so what do we really need to be doing to raise apologetics, to raise the why behind the what in this region? And there's varied opinions, and there's people doing this and that, a lot of great work, but there's never really been an opportunity to bring those leaders together and have a focused discussion about how to move the whole project forward in a collaborative way. So that was number one goal, and we did that, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. Then we had a opportunity to do an apologetics conference to this community that I've been able to work with over the last several years. My first trip to them was in 2017. I returned in 2018 and 2019 doing similar type of apologetics work. We missed 2020. I was able to go back in 2021, and then we were coming back. So we've actually been there. I've been there for 5 times, and this was the first time we were able to do this work as Adventurous Apologetics. So those are the 2 kind of event things that we did. The third thing that we wanted to do is honestly take this whole vision on a test run. You know, so we had not done this as a team before, and so we wanted to see, you know, how is this going to work? You know, are we going to how is it going to be traveling together? How is it going to be partnering together? Are we going to be able to do all the organization? Are we going to be able to fund it, et cetera, et cetera? So this was kind of a prototype run of what we hope is many more missions like this in the future. And so so that went really well. So all 3 of these, so I'll kind of jump to the conclusion. The good news is that this was a great trip. And so each one of these things, between the Leader Summit, the Apologetics Conference, and just prototyping a mission of this type, it all went really well. Of course, there's always things we could improve, but for our first time, I think it went really well. So let me then go and describe these 2 events and give you a taste of what we experienced, what we did, and what we accomplished. So first of all, the Leader Summit. Again, the purpose here was to gather the leaders together, the influencers who are doing the work on the ground right now, and discover not only what they're doing, but how we can better collaborate, all with the purpose of raising up the visibility of apologetics in East Africa. So, so how did that net out? Well, we were able to bring together about 23 leaders and influencers from Kenya, from Uganda, and from Rwanda, as well as ourselves from the US. So we had great representation from the region, and we were able to get some of the key leaders who are actually doing apologetics work in the region together. We spent 2.5 days together to assess sort of the lay of the land of apologetics, and then to do some planning that resulted in key action items that we think are critical to really grow apologetics in the region. We were located just outside of Entebbe, Uganda, which is near the airport. And we were all together in a great little kind of modest, simple setting, but very comfortable. And we were able to spend those 2.5 days together there. And let me say, really, the key goals here. The key goals were to, number one, raise awareness. So despite the fact that these ministries and people are fairly close together geographically, it's surprising how little awareness there is between the different groups doing different things in Kenya, in Rwanda, in Uganda. So, and especially visibility from an international perspective, looking in and trying to discover ways that the international community, like for instance, us in the US, how can we best understand what they're doing and how we can come alongside and help in any way. So it was really about raising awareness. Number two, through this process of just being together for these 2.5 days and talking about this stuff and hearing their stories, hearing about their ministries, this is a great opportunity to build relationships. Some of these relationships got started by Zooming. So the world is very accessible these days with a Zoom link. And so we, prior to us visiting, we were able to meet the key players, have discussions. but it's different when you can be there in person. And so, and just spend some time together. So we were able to build relationships. And again, nothing happens without relationships. Nothing happens without the trust that you grow when you get to know each other and understand each other better. And then the third thing, besides raising awareness and building relationships, is really working through some key topics that point to very key questions about how apologetics could grow in the region. And that led to a number of key action items that we as a group collaborated on and decided, hey, these are the priorities, these are the specific things that we should be taking action to in a collaborative way to move the whole project forward. So awareness, relationship, action. That was the summit goals. And I think we did pretty well on all three of these. And I won't go into detail about how we did that, other than to just show you some pictures that capture what happened. So for gaining awareness, we had 11 presenters from the different ministries, the different people and leaders, who each had about a 30-minute stand on the podium to tell us about what they were doing as a ministry or as leaders, what their biggest challenges were, what their target audience was, and what it looked like going forward for them over the next couple years. So it was a great opportunity to hear from the key ministry leaders from Apologetics Kenya, from Come and See Rwanda, from several of the universities, which are critical in this training in apologetics. So we were able to hear from a broad spectrum of people. They were able to hear from us too. And so together, we spent about, a day and a half just listening to the different ministries and what they were doing. And that was very eye-opening. And I think it was an opportunity, a unique opportunity for these leaders to really have better awareness of who was doing what, where, to whom, and what their plans were. So we saw a lot of commonality between the different efforts, but we also saw a lot of distinctiveness, which I think gives us that that kind of unity and diversity that will make for a great, a great effort moving forward. So this was gaining awareness. As far as relationship building goes, a lot of it took place in the break times between sessions, coffee breaks, just hanging around the table, hanging around the campfire, just in the process of listening to the presentations, getting to know the leaders. This was really good. One thing that we all came away from recognizing is that we didn't really budget nearly enough time for this kind of activity, for the relationship building that happens in a slightly less formal setting. So next time we go, one of our takeaways is we need to build in more time that that allows us to kind of chill out a bit and just have more informal discussions, getting to know the people, getting to know about their families, about their life story, etc. So next time we'll try to budget in more of this time. And yeah, it looks like fun and relaxation, but it's really an important part of the whole thing because relationships are so important. So then last is collaborating on developing an action plan, kind of a roadmap of how we can together, through the different ministries, the different people, both nationally and internationally, how can we together collaborate to move apologetics forward and steward this amazing bulk of resources and people that we have at our disposal. So the approach we took was kind of a workshop format. So we broke out into several teams, And we did very brainstormy activities, tackling a series of key issues. It turns out there were a total of 7 key topics that collectively we had determined were the key issues that needed to be dealt with. And in the workshop kind of brainstorm format, we were able to generate ideas regarding those topics, answers to the key questions associated with those topics, and then from that, agree on some key actions that would really be effective in moving the whole project forward. And so we spent about a total of a day on this activity. And it was very fruitful. It was a lot of work, and it did generate a tremendous amount of data. We recorded all of these sessions. We took a lot of notes and we took a lot of pictures, and we came back with stacks and stacks of sticky notes. And so one of the follow-up action items that Adventurous Apologetics has is to create a sort of summary document that captures all of this and then keep the momentum going. And I'll show you that in just a sec. Here's just some pictures of what was transpiring. You know, like I said, we broke up into 2 different teams, workshop groups. Kristen facilitated one, I facilitated the other. We were groups of around 10 people, which is a good size for generating this. And we had fun with sticky notes and just that fast-moving brainstorming pace. Just to give you a couple ideas of the topics that we were concerned with. You probably can't read it from your screen, but you know, the first thing we tackled was, what are the top questions that need to be answered from an apologetic standpoint in East Africa? You know, so oftentimes the question is are the answers that we have generated here, that the questions that we've been posed here, say in the US, are those questions and those answers even relevant in a place like East Africa? And if not, then what are the questions that we need to be answering in East Africa? And so that's a great question. And so this was an exercise to try and discern out from the leaders who are being asked those questions to really develop a ranking of what are the key things that we need to be aware of and the answers we need to provide. We talked about conferences. You know, what are the roles of conferences in Africa as far as activities and opportunities to bring people together on this topic? We talked about apologetics in the academy, in the universities. You know, here in the US, we have some great institutes that focus on training at a college degree level for apologetics. Not so much so in Africa. So the accessibility to the type of training that you really need to be a center of gravity, to be a real leader in apologetics, is limited in Africa. So if your only option is to come to the States, that is oftentimes an insurmountable financial barrier. So how do we change that? How do we bring more apologetics into the academy? What about resources? You know, boy, try getting books into Uganda. You know, they're heavy, they can be expensive, and there's not many libraries for this. So what do we do about this? So we dealt with that. What about equipping pastors? How do we do that? What is the role of international organizations like us in apologetics in East Africa? How do we best collaborate, and what is our respective roles? And then finally, technology is changing the way we do things. It is opening up so many opportunities. How do we best steward this technology in the service to apologetics? So those are the type of topics that we dealt with, and there were key questions associated with each one of them. And so the workshops were a great way to gather people's input on this, to be able to then digest that into some key actions that we can move forward on these. So that was a nutshell, gaining awareness, building relationships, and generating action items that will address really the priorities. Here's just a picture of some of the people involved. We had multiple teams, and overall a great fun time. I think people came away energized, encouraged. I heard a lot of comments like, boy, it was just so good to be amongst people with the same passion. I felt like I was all alone doing this thing. And now I realize I'm not. I realize I'm part of a larger team, both within, East Africa, but then around the world. And we also had kind of ironic comments like, it's kind of weird. We've never done this before. I've never participated in an event that has brought the key leaders together and actually asked us for our insights and our opinions and our wisdom into this. And it's kind of strange that it took a small team from the US to bring us together here in East Africa. And so on the one hand, that's kind of weird, but on the other hand, I think it's pretty natural. Sometimes it does take kind of that third party, a little bit independent, to come in and be the vehicle, be the catalyst to bring people together like this. And so that's really representative of what the vision for adventurous apologetics is to be that catalyst, to be able to bring people together and catalyze. You saw one of the first things we do is catalyze things, and a catalyst is that thing that takes existing things floating out there and then make something happen that otherwise might not happen. And I think this was a great example of that. So what do we come away with from this particular leader summit? A bunch of key actions, and we're kind of still reeling from like, how are we going to get all this stuff done? But we will. So number one is we need to capture everything that we gain from the Leader Summit. So we're in the process of creating a summary sort of proceedings document. Like I said, we have all of the sessions recorded. We're going to post those for the participants on YouTube. And then the result of the workshop, we're going to publicize for them the results and the key actions. We need their feedback. We need everybody's feedback. So we're working on a feedback form so we know what was good, what was bad, and how to do it better in the future. We've got to keep the momentum going. So we're going to be hosting periodic Zoom leaders meetings where we can come together and follow up on the action items that we generated. One of the clear things that came out of the workshops is the need for certificate level training. It kept coming up. We need to equip people. And there's kind of a spectrum of what that means, from informal, just presentations, even sermons, to all the way up to college level, accredited degree programs. The sweet spot that really is needing addressing is kind of this in between informal and, academically formal, which is kind of a certificate level thing. That is really a key thing. And so we're strategizing on the best way to do that. We have a standing invitation from Come and See Rwanda to collaborate with them very soon, actually in July. And we'd love to be able to participate in that. And so we're trying to make that happen. And then last but not least, coming up in the late fall, there's some opportunities for a conference, and we're brainstorming on what that might look like as the next opportunity to take this group of leaders from Rwanda, Uganda, and Kenya, and perhaps do a collaborative conference. So those are some of the key action items that came away from our time. So let me move on. We wrapped up that on, let's see, that was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Monday, we traveled the 7-hour drive from Entebbe to Western Uganda in Ishaka. And we started off the apologetics conference there. So really, this was kind of threefold. So number one, we were speaking to the congregation at Ishaka Community Church, and that congregation is amazing. So Ishaka is located in the small town that has one of the largest medical schools in Uganda. Okay, so students come from all over Africa to go to medical school to become doctors, to become nurses, pharmacists, business people associated with medicine, IT, everything to do with the medical field. And they spend 3 to 6 years getting their degree there. And so most of the congregation at Ishaka Community Church are these young emerging leaders, doctors, nurses, pharmacists of the future. They're on fire for the Lord, and they are, at least a portion of them, are really excited about the opportunity for apologetics. And so that's kind of the platform that I personally have been able to nurture over the last couple of years. And now as Adventurous Apologetics, we've been able to go and we're really pouring into this community. So we spoke to 50 or 60 up and coming medical students. We also spent some real quality time with the leadership who are building an apologetics ministry out of Ishaka Community Church. They themselves are getting trained, and they're getting trained so they can train others. So the congregation there, the leadership there, and then last we had the privilege of actually going to a all-girls high school, and we were able to speak into about 500 young ladies. And it was great to be able to both give our testimony there, but also whet their appetites about this whole notion of being able to ask good questions about our faith and then seek good answers. And we were able to model that to some extent. So let me walk you through some specifics here, just through pictures that will show the story there. So again, just details, 2 days with ICC with the team there. We did a total of, I think, 8 apologetics presentations across a wide variety of subjects. We did 2 Q&A sessions, which were exciting, dynamic, a little scary, but I think really fruitful. And then we went to the all-girls high school to give testimony, encouragement, and do Q&A. And then we were able to spend time with the leadership there, doing a little bit of strategic planning for their ministry. Here we are doing our presentations. And I wanted to share with you the type of presentations that that resonated with these people in Western Uganda, because it addresses the question of how relevant is the apologetics that we do here in the West, in the US in particular, to a community like in Western Uganda. So we did everything from embracing apologetics, which is just an encouragement to do this work, to worldviews and how that intersects with apologetics. Kristen did a biblical archaeology presentation. Steve did a great presentation on meaning and purpose as Christians and as people in general. We also had one on artificial intelligence, which for the medical students, because they get a taste of neuroscience and neurology, and they understand how brains work and all that stuff, very relevant to their discipline. Same thing with science and Christianity. These are bright, young, very scientifically minded, astute students. And so the topics that we deal with in science are very relevant to them. God and the problem of evil is the #1 issue, both here and there. And so we got to talk about that. And then we had some presentations on cults. So that gives you an idea of the type of topics that we are presenting on. Then we were able to spend time in a more intimate setting with the key leaders at ICC, just pouring into them, not only more in-depth presentations, but also talking about their particular ministry and how it can grow and really be effective in their region. Then we went to the high school and again had a great time with about 500 of these young ladies. And I was very grateful to have Kristen along with us because she was kind of the star of the show. At the end of the presentation, when we were done, all the girls were flocking to Kristen, wanting to get pictures, wanting to get hugs, and really wanted to engage in conversation. And she was able to share a bit of her testimony and and just serve as an example of how these young ladies can aspire as well to be well educated, to be articulate, and to be able to ask good questions about their faith and seek good answers. That's really what it was all about. So that was our time in Ishaka. Key action items there is the leadership there has been involved in I think it's a 6 or 7 course that's provided by Kristen's other ministry, Eat Steak, Not Cake, where we're going through a study of what it means to be human. So they've already been engaged in that. And so we're going to be finishing that up in the next month or so. Since Doug has joined us officially as part of the Adventurous Apologetics team, he's going to come alongside me and start participating in time that I've been spending with that team almost every Saturday, mentoring them, equipping them, dealing with questions, having discussions. So Doug's going to come on board and start helping in that regard. And then we need to continue to work with them, consulting in their ministry plans as they build an apologetics ministry out of Ishaka Community Church. So last but not least, we got to spend time with Sam and Prosy. Pastor Sam and his wife Prosy are the leaders over ICC Church. It's great to have them as strong advocates for their congregation for apologetics. And, it's not a foregone conclusion that all church leadership will welcome in apologetics in the way that I think needs to happen. And Sam and Prosy are really, blessing us by being so encouraging, by exhorting their students and their congregation to do this work and welcoming us to be supporters alongside that. So then we got to come home finally, and this day and age, one of the biggest reliefs in international travel is getting that negative COVID test, which you have to get at the very last minute. So there's always that stress of tension of like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen if I get it and it's positive? So we were very fortunate on this trip. We had no travel hiccups. All of our flights were on time. We didn't have any COVID issues. And so all of that was good. I will say though, my goodness, long flights, especially Kristen. I think Kristen's flight home took a total of 37 hours. So mine was about 35. So pretty tough travel thing. And you can see that last picture is me being very happy to have my Stumptown coffee when I got back. So, all right, so I'm going to wrap up here just by saying, okay, what's next? What's next for us? Those of you who have seen our overall presentation is there are so many opportunities all around the world for taking apologetics on mission, that if we had a huge team and unlimited finances, we could go just about anywhere. But right now we're finding ourselves more and more called to this East Africa region as the place to really to develop this model in a way that then we feel, like we've got some good wins, we've got a replicable model, we've got a sustainable model that we can then be confident about replicating in other parts of the world. So while we have a lot of opportunities all over the place, we're really going to be focused in on East Africa for the next season here. So what does that mean? Like I say, we have a standing invitation to go to Rwanda, and we're really looking to how to pull that off. And the biggest challenge is just it's coming up fairly close. We need to raise funds for that, and we need to be able to dedicate the time to that. And so we're trying to come to a decision there fairly soon on that. Doug is in Colorado. It turns out that God has ordered this such that we've got me here on the West Coast. We've got Kristen over in Florida on the East Coast. And now happily we have Doug right in the middle. So, so we have a need to come together as a team and do some strategic planning. We're going to be doing that, it looks like, courtesy of Doug in Colorado in the summer. So that's coming up. Then we have this great opportunity with a key partner ministry of ours, Reasons to Believe. And they have been super supportive. Catherine's online right now. She's just been awesome in encouraging us, supporting us in our efforts. And we have key relationship there, and we have opportunity to do some amazing stuff in Hawaii. And then finally, East Africa. East Africa is going to be our focus. So we're looking about returning not only this short-term thing in Rwanda, but also later in the fall to do a larger series of events in East Africa. And then as Doug's come on board, he's bringing with him some great opportunities in South America, maybe Central America. So it's early to say, but we're hoping that, well, we're praying and seeing that God is opening up some doors, especially for Doug, in specifically Honduras, and then some countries in South America. So if you're praying with us, pray for those right doors to be open and opportunities to happen there. So with that, I'd love to just hear any comments or questions that you may have about our very first adventure. So the floor is open to you. Just wave your hand or speak up. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here if I can. So questions or comments?
That sounds great. I got a report back from I'm Frank Foreman. I'm with Come and See Rwanda, and our ministers there just were very impressed by this summit and very excited and energized by it. So we're looking forward to hopefully Ben coming in July and opening another front in East Africa.
Amen. And thanks, Frank. I see you there. And the thanks go both ways. So we really had a great time meeting the other Frank and David and Frank's wife, and we're able to develop that relationship, hear their stories, and start something that I know will have long-term fruit. So yeah, it was great, and really appreciate the invitation to come and see Rwanda. So yeah. Hopefully that'll happen. I see Don has his hand raised. Don, go for it.
I just wanted to say if people could just throw their name and emails in like the chat room if they want to connect with each other on this kind of stuff. And then also, I just had a thing. Could you just give a really short thing on what is that? Eat steak, not cake. What does that have to fill us in a little bit on that?
I will hand that off to Kristen, who is the eat steak, not cake person. And we can't hear you yet, Kristen, because even though you're unmuted, we're not hearing you. Well, chime in there when you can. Keep talking when you can. Just interrupt me. I'll speak on her behalf until she comes. So Eat Steak and Not Cake is she calls it an eclectic apologetics training ministry. And they take a particular topic and spend about 6 months going through that topic, teaching.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, now we can hear you. Perfect. So
I don't know what just happened. Sorry. Yeah. So basically, we're a 360-degree approach to apologetics and cultural questions. And so I have a team of advanced scholars. Everybody has a terminal degree or is working on a terminal degree, so a doctorate or a PhD or something like that. People who would be teaching in universities. And we're approaching a topic from 360 degrees. And so we've got people who are theologians, who are philosophers, who are humanities professors, apologists. We have a medical doctor on our team. And so, for example, this semester, we looked at what does it mean to be human? And we had, I looked at it from artificial intelligence, because that's what I'm working for in my dissertation. We had somebody who presented the Imago Dei in a theological perspective. We've talked about it. We had a class actually this morning where Miguel was talking on it from an aesthetic and arts perspective. And so we've also done it from questions related to the origins, questions related to gender and sexuality, and then we'll have one having to do with Marxism and humor in another month. And so really we want to show that the concepts that we see in Christianity, the beliefs we have in Christianity, they mirror every other aspect of reality on that same subject and topic. And we're bringing this to the lay audiences. We notice that there's a gap between what people might get in their church and Bible college, and that there's a lot of people who are not going to go on to Bible college or seminary to get that education. So we want to bring that education down out of the universities to the average people. So.
yeah, thanks, Kristen. And as you can see, Miguel is on the call. He just gave us a great perspective that you don't hear very often about the role of art in the Christian worldview. How do we look at art from a Christian perspective, and what implication does that have in our apologetics? So a great topic. My experience, and I've been participant in the course. What's great about it is it's very accessible. So I think Miguel posted the link to the site. It's very accessible to all of you, but it is at a level that is, it's the speakers, the presenters are very highly qualified to speak in their particular field. So it's kind of a rare opportunity for us normal people to be able to get the kind of content that otherwise is reserved for the ivory towers of the universities. So,
and one other thing that we like to do that may not necessarily be relevant to this audience is we really have a missional heart. And so one of the big problems for international students is they may be wealthy or well equipped financially in their own country, but when you try to translate that to US dollars, it's like nominal. So if you have a 14-to-1 exchange rate, it's absolutely impossible for you to pay US tuitions, even for a certificate program. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to reduce that gap as well, is we are very intentional about being internationally focused. So we actually price our courses and everybody pays what they would pay in their own country rather than everybody paying US prices. So.
Yeah, and that model, I would say, is fairly novel. And we're actually using that model that Kristen and her team has developed to go to some of the academies, to the universities here that offer certificates and offer advanced degrees, and say, hey, have you considered taking this same type of model that would really have the potential of expanding who you can reach beyond the boundaries, the geographic boundaries of the US, and just adjusting the tuition, frankly, to a relative scale that matches that country and makes it way more accessible. It's still going to be expensive, no doubt, but it's going to be within striking distance rather than completely unobtainable. So I think it's a great model, and I'm hoping we have success in promoting this in some of the leading institutes to give the training that we're so blessed to have to those people in places where otherwise it's too expensive.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about what your dialogue with the students was like. Did you have a favorite question that was asked, or what types of questions were they really interested in getting into deeper, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, all right, my studio audience has to leave. So bye, Brian. Enjoy battling the parade out there. Thanks for coming in. See ya. That's a great question, Callie. We had so many different questions come in all over the map. I would say that the number one question has to do something with the problem of evil and suffering in some way. It can be specific to, like, why would a good God allow something like the COVID virus? That would be one. So we had questions kind of in evil and suffering. We also had questions to do with human sexuality. So the issues that we're dealing with here in the developed nations in the West about gender, LGBTQ kind of stuff, those are filtering into regions as remote as Western Uganda. A lot of the questions also had to do with the reliability of Scripture. Why should we believe this book that was written, over 2,000 years ago, copied, translated, et cetera, et cetera. Then some of the more, like, I would say, regionally specific kind of questions. There's one question that comes up often, especially in East Africa, and that is, why should we believe this religion that seems to be a white man's religion that was brought to us by slave trading colonializers? That's a pretty legitimate question coming from somebody who's grown up in East Africa in that context. So we need to be prepared with questions like that. Gosh, what else? Just so many different questions. Questions about evolution would come up. Questions about science. What about the Big Bang? Surprisingly,
Cain's wife, that one came out. That one's universal.
Which one, Kristen?
Who was Cain's wife?
Who was Cain's wife?
That seems to be everybody all over the globe wants to know that one.
There was this was kind of funny, and maybe if I get this wrong, Kristen can correct me. But at the girls' high school, I'm not kidding. It seemed like every other question had to do with whether it was okay to listen to secular music or not. It's like, wow, they got all this great music, and it's like, oh, is this okay to listen to? So that was a question. What else? Belinda, if you're trying to speak, you're muted. Okay. All right. Well, as if anybody has any more questions, just interrupt me. Let me do, since we've got Catherine from RTB here, Reasons to Believe here. Let me just do a little plug through the I think the Jacksonville chapter. Kristen was able to bring about 50 pounds of RTB books and DVDs. And we loaded up the Shaka Community Church's library with those. Thank you very much indirectly for that. As questions of science and religion comes up, we always point to RTB as one of the key go-to sources and being able to give them books that they can then read and DVDs that they can watch is really instrumental. Also, that really helps bring awareness to the ministry. And this is a more general thing. You know, when you leave a book, it can be the key for them to discover the online presence of that ministry, which is so critical because, as I mentioned, it's really hard to bring hard copy material there. But if they can go to your website, they can discover your YouTube channel, all of a sudden, all of those resources are wide open to them. And, you know, increasingly, they do have access to the internet sufficient to do training online, to be able to build relationships online, like they're meeting with me and soon Doug every Saturday online via Zoom. So technology in service to apologetics is absolutely critical for our project moving forward. Well, all right. Unless there's any more questions, let me just end by saying this. Number one, you know, we thank you so much for your prayers and specifically for your financial support. You know, we can't do any of this without fuel in the tank. So, you know, when you donate any amount to us, that goes directly into helping these type of missions happen. And so we've got a lot of missions in front of us. We're only limited by time and money. And so if the Lord puts it on your heart to support us financially, it's real easy. Just go to our website and hit the donate thing. And then your prayers. We had so many people praying for us. I really believe that that is the key to making our travel smooth, to paving the way, to connecting us with the right people, and to opening up these future opportunities. So, you know, support us with your prayers, support us if you can with your finances, and it's just so encouraging to have all you guys spend you know, an hour or so of your Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon with us, getting to hear about our adventures. So, any final comments, questions?
Thanks, Ben. Great presentation.
Thank you, Steve. It's a blessing to have you as part of our team. And, you know, great to have you joining us from another part of the East Coast. So very, very encouraging. And great to see all these faces all around the world. Well, let me just close out with a quick prayer and then let you go. All right?
Amen.
All right. Jesus, you are so good to us. We love you so much. And we just count it a blessing to be serving you in this unique way through trying to convey the good reasons for why we should trust in you, why we should commit our lives to you. I thank you for all the people who are on this Zoom call, Lord. And I thank you for those who might be listening to the recording. Lord, thank you for their support, their encouragement, their prayers, their financial support. And Lord, guide us collectively as we seek to serve you, bringing the why behind the what of your truth. We love you, Jesus. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. God
Thanks.
bless you all. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye,
Yeah.
everybody.